Hey folks, Segasonicfan here, doing some more Sega CDX repairs. This one was sent to me with a desperate customer, and desperate for good reason. This poor system had no video output, actually had a short on the power rail, and in addition to that, had a really nasty audio glitch, basically, is what it sounded like. Really distorted, uh, pitch changing audio in the BIOS screen. Um, Similar to the PCM fix, the PCM issue I had in one of my other videos that I posted recently. I posted part 2 of that video recently. And those issues are no fun to fix. Whew, those are no fun. Those are difficult for sure. None of these issues were due to an obvious short or something spilling or anything like that. Nothing visual to represent those issues. So I really had to go deep on this one. But I did find the power short. It was the chroma encoder circuit had completely shorted out. Had to have that replaced. That's the MB3514. Fortunately, it didn't knock out the 220 microfarad capacitor. I'll show you what I'm talking about on my other board. I don't want to be unplugging and plugging in this one now that it's working. But here's my other board just to give you an idea. This chip had blown, and a lot of times you'll blow this capacitor if it's through the video signal path as well. There's also a fuse. Sorry, this is the decoupling cap. This is the that's the actual video cap. Then there's essentially a fuse over there as well. Yeah, so when you start blowing up ICs and you can't even visually tell that they're blown up, that's when life starts to really be difficult. You should get, if you're measuring, and you can actually measure this cap right here. This is your decoupling cap for your 5-volt rail. You should be getting around 350 ohms across that cap. Now, you can also measure this cap for shorts on this is actually a bypass capacitor for the FM audio power circuitry, which is outputted down there. I believe it's like pins 56. Yeah, pins 56. It starts at 53 on the corner there. So yeah, this is your bypass cap for your FM audio. It's also a good one to check because it actually travels a different path. It's actually in between the PCB substrate. This is a 4-ply board, which means there's all sorts of connections in between the substrate, which makes diagnosing stuff on it especially difficult. I do recommend putting some tape here, by the way, folks, this Kapton tape here, because I do find some of these broken sometimes where little bits of stuff falls in through the cart slot. And honestly, it's not, it is, I would actually categorize it as a bit of a design flaw to leave that exposed as an end product when you have that really high pitch pin density and people are plugging and unplugging. They really should have put a little plastic piece or something like that. You know, nobody's perfect. But if I were to design something, I definitely would have taken some precautions. A little bit of tape does the job. You'll notice I put some tape here. That's because that is the circuitry that handles your SRAM battery. So that's always active. There's always voltage there. So it's a good idea to insulate it. You just want to be careful when you're got this thing moving around and stuff. Anyway, this is not the board that broke, but I was just showing you what had broken on the board over here. In addition to that, I had to fix this audio problem, and this one was a bastard. It always is, fixing those PCM glitchy audio issues. How this works, by the way, is that you have, if I can give a full rundown here, I might as well. So you have your Genesis ASIC, FM RAM, RGB output. That does everything there. And then you have your 68K. This does a bunch of stuff. I mean, both of these two ASICs. This is your 68K. It's your CPU for that Mega Drive 2 ASIC, essentially. And this is your BIOS chip. This stores your BIOS when you're loading Sega CD games. It's also region encoded. I did make a post a while back with the actual part number. I actually had like the earliest revision of one of these that was not Sega branded. The BIOS, which is pretty cool. This is your Sega CD ASIC. This has some additional graphics processing. It also interfaces with your PCM chip and does a bunch of other crap. Of course, it interfaces with this CPU as well, which is a 12 megahertz 68K. This is a 8, but it's actually, 7.6 or 7.12 megahertz, something like that. It's underclocked, but it's rated at 8. You can see the 8 there, FN8, FN12, 12 megahertz. And And a little background on PCM audio issues. So if you're getting a PCM audio issue, what it'll often sound like is a distorted tone or a pitch difference when you boot up your Sega CD. And this is your PCM chip right here. Actually, I'll show you over here. This is your PCM chip. That one's had some modifications. And this is your PCM RAM. And this is the RAM for this chip, so it's bust all over the place, of course. And there's some operation enable pins you want to look out for as well. Data clocks, other things. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. But if you have a PCM issue, it's going to be this chip, the RAM for it, the ASIC, like one of the pins on the bus might be bad, the 68K, which buses to those pins as well, or this 3155619. Now the 3155619 is a custom chip for only used in the CDX, which is super annoying. Very hard to replace. I only had one of them go bad, and I actually I have a video already up online where I show myself building an op amp to replace one of the broken op amps that was inside this integrated circuit. But this guy is a bunch of op amps that are used in the Mega Drive 2 Mega CD combo as a passive analog stage, passive analog mixing, low pass filters and stuff like that. In addition, this side of the chip here is bused to the PCM for your DAC. This is also the DAC for the PCM as well. So you got a lot of stuff to check if you have a PCM issue. You have to check this chip, this chip, this chip, this chip, and this chip, and you have to check for traces, any sort of damaged traces or anything like that. Now this board was, sorry, I'm turning the camera too much. This board was especially annoying because there was no trace damage, no spillage, nothing like that, and no visual indicators whatsoever. Bust everything out. Took me some hours looking for differences and little discrepancies, and I found what was essentially a very, very minor discrepancy, and that is the data bus, which is like D0 to D7 or D8. It begins over here on pin, I believe it's 23 or 20. Yeah, it's 23, I believe. 24 is the end pin here. Anyway, it begins there, and it interfaces with the 68K starting on pin 1 down this chain. And this will be different for any. This is not by no means a universal repair for this. But that reading was, for that bus, was just a little bit lower. And we're talking very little than it should have been. And so I had checked everything else at that point, and I was like, okay, if an entire bus, and I mean all the data pins were low, then that's leading me to believe that this is not an issue of just a damaged trace or a single digital connection. Additionally, the person who sent me this told me it broke when they fed in voltage into the video input through some sort of weird SCART adapter. So with that piece of information and that sort of, working issue, a very minor issue, but still almost negligible, I decided to go ahead and replace the PCM Ram chip, which I did. This is the old one. This will go in the bin because now it works. And without further ado, let's go ahead and fire it up. You hear that? This screen is playing PCM audio, not to be confused with CD audio, of course. The CD audio, which is now being accessed, there's CD DACs and stuff, or DAA converters. They're not actually DACs because CD is already digital. Take that back. There is a DAC. It's the LC7883 or LC7885. I got to initialize the RAM because I took out the save battery when I was working on it. Well, that's annoying. All right, maybe I won't play the game right now. I have to initialize the RAM, do another video. But my point is, you can tell the audio is working now. The CD audio is fine, and in fact, I might be able to play you just CD audio from the built-in CD player. That's right, folks, it's got a built-in CD player. The future is now. Welcome to the next level. And of course, if I skip tracks. There you go. We got CD audio. Now, of course, the CD audio was not the issue. It was all the FM. And so you might be wondering, well, when does the FM play if it doesn't play for the soundtrack of the game? You know, it doesn't play in the level. Well, for those that might not know, PCM audio, this chip is accessed for very specific parts of music, sound effects. In the case of Sonic CD, it's a great test game because past levels, a lot of past levels, will actually use this chip. I believe it's a 16-bit, I think it's a 12-channel PCM chip. And so even if you have a bad, you know, if you have PCM problems, you can play most games pretty okay. I think you will get some problems with Final Fight because it uses sound effects for the PCM. I mean, it'll be annoying for sure, but it could be worse. You could still play some stuff. Anyway, it's an expensive, difficult issue to fix. I have a video where I talk about PCM repair. My other video ended up being this issues with this RAM and the ASIC. It was a totally different issue or totally different solution. So I want to stress that if you watch this video, don't just go replacing this and thinking everything's going to be fine. This is a step-by-step meticulous process where you really have to check each thing, and you have to check the buses to make sure that you're replacing what you need to replace. Otherwise, you're just going to be chasing your tail. So yeah, hopefully this video was helpful. It probably isn't because this is pretty high-level repair stuff, but maybe it's interesting to somebody watching this. And it's nice to bring another CDX back to life. A little additional note I just want to point out is that this system was sent to me with the, you know, probably bought off eBay or something like that, and the sender did not know that it had been opened previously and thought it hadn't. And so one good tell sign of somebody who does not know what they're doing when working on these is if you look here and you see this copper is ripped off. These are, you see that little bit of copper there? Well, somebody didn't know that you're supposed to desolder this and actually ripped off the ends that connect here. So both those ends are actually supposed to be soldered here, and it's actually one piece of copper. Now I can patch this up with a new sheet of copper, but this is an immediate indicator that this is a system that's been worked on and fiddled with. And so who knows, maybe that had something to do with why the PCM failure happened. I'm very suspicious of any of these that are opened, unless it's, you know, to replace a laser is really the only reason you should be opening these up. I know some people are doing cap kits these days. I've yet to see a CDX with, I think I've seen one with a capacitor failure. It's really rare, folks. So I would really caution people against opening these up to replace capacitors. Wait for them to have a problem. The capacitors so far, I've never heard of any of them leaking and damaging things like the Game Gear. People kind of overdo it a bit with the capacitors sometimes. I will say that I take that back. I will say I have seen some motherboard caps go bad. So maybe I have to eat my words a bit. You should replace these motherboard caps if you can. But which, by the way, are these ones, these 470s. I've definitely seen those go bad. So maybe I'll have to eat my words a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I'm one of those like people that's like just my philosophy is, you know, be cautious before opening up a system, especially if you're not really familiar with it, you know. And I know people want to learn, and I really support the idea of, you know, DIY. Obviously, I make these videos for people to repair stuff, but there are certain systems like this one that are getting very, very expensive and very hard to replace parts and source broken units. It's not like the old days when I used to be able to get these any day of the week for $50 broken. Or get, you know, just a motherboard for $10 or whatever. I mean, it used to be like that. And nowadays it's getting harder and harder to do that, which is a bummer. So if you're going to work on these, I really recommend you have a few years of experience under your belt, or you send it to somebody that does, and save yourself some time, some money, some headache, and some landfill of a beautiful system. I'll get off my soapbox now. Hopefully this video is useful for you, and hopefully, yeah, you enjoy what I'm doing here, sharing info and talking about repairs and stuff. I think the person that sent me this is going to be really happy. I was not at all confident I would be able to repair this. It was such a difficult issue. But sure enough, it's all good. Let's load it up one more time and just hear that beautiful FM sound. What Nintendo don't have. Oh yeah! It's a lot more exciting when you fix something. Huh. That's it for this video. Segasonic Fan, signing out.